So I always kind of like to use the analogy is that, God can't steer a parked car. A lot of times people will say, says, well, God will guide me. And that says, well, that's great. This is it's our it's kind of like a GPS in your car. You sitting in your driveway, you program your GPS on which route you want to take. Okay, that might be the inner compass or in God giving you directions. But if you never leave the driveway, you're never going to get to your destination.
Follow the compass home. Let the truth lead the way. You don't have to rush your knowing. It's been with you every day.
Greetings and welcome to the Inner Compass podcast. I'm your host, Bruce Barnes, aka The Logical Intuitive, and I'm excited to have you here kicking off with episode 1. Just want to share a little bit about why I created this podcast and what's it all about. Well, I refer to it as the inner compass or inner wisdom, that inner voice that's guiding people and stuff. That's all about people sharing their stories about their inner compass speaking to them, and whether they listen to it or not, sharing the stories around that. So maybe they listen to it and are sharing their success stories, or maybe they heard the inner compass, ignored it, and are willing to share their lessons learned. So that's kind of the premise around the inner compass, because I know, personally, I've had many situations where I've had that inner voice helping me, and or at least trying to help me, and sometimes I ignored it. But I'm going to be having guests on sharing their stories around their experience with their inner compass, and just want to, have people feel comfortable talking about that because we all have experienced this. So thus I created this Inner Compass podcast, and looking forward to having you, the audience, be able to gain some insights and maybe some wisdom, and that can help you in your life. And who knows, maybe you'll be a guest on one of my future episodes. So it's all about, like I said, listening to your inner compass, or I refer to it as those whispers. I think we've all experienced that situation where, whether it's a gut feeling or just this knowingness, and that we should, do this versus that, and that little encouraging voice or feeling that we have. And if you have had that, you know what I'm talking about. And maybe you've had it and you just kind of brushed it off and didn't pay much attention to it. I look at it as those whispers are our guides, our angels, however you want to look at it. And they're trying to help us. And I've had a friend share this kind of analogy in that, okay, maybe they're trying to get your attention initially. It's like a feather that's, kind of tickling you and trying to get your attention in that. And we just kind of brush it off, okay, leave me alone. Okay, now so that feather didn't work. So maybe it's a little stick that they kind of wrap. It's like you just ignore that, and pretty soon you're getting hit with a brick. And so those little whispers, as I refer to it, are ways that our guides are trying to get our attention and tell us something. Sometimes it's not necessarily a decision that we're making, but maybe it's trying to get your attention that you're pushing yourself too hard and you need to take it easy. Like you need to take care of yourself. And that's where some people get hit with that brick and they wind up having some major health issue that forces them to be out of commission for a while to recover. If they had just paid attention to those whispers and started doing some self-care, that probably could have been avoided. So there's a misconception a lot of people have that self-care is being selfish. That's not true. I think most people want to be able to help others, and especially like other coaches and anybody that's in the healing arena, they want to help others. Well, if you're laid up and sick and that you can't help people when you're in that situation. So picture this visual here. Some people have said that you have your cup and you're filling your cup up and serving people from your cup. Well, what I like to use as an analogy is you have your coffee cup sitting on a saucer. The coffee cup represents your well-being, your state of mind. You fill that up and keep it full so that you're at your peak performance, energy-wise, health-wise, mental, emotional, everything. And you keep filling it up. And pretty soon that cup starts to overflow onto the saucer. So now that represents your extra, your bonus. You serve others from the saucer. You don't serve from your cup. You maintain your cup, your well-being, your root support of yourself. That's the most important thing, is to take care of yourself. So by serving from the saucer, you're always at your best, whether energy, health-wise, whatever. So just kind of keep that in mind. So sometimes those whispers are trying to tell you that, hey, you're taking and emptying out of your cup. So fill that cup back up. Sometimes that whisper might be helping you with a decision you're making, or that someone came to you for advice, and that whisper is trying to help you give them the best advice possible. And I look at those whispers, the inner compass. It's like a muscle. The more often you listen to it and pay attention to it and take aligned action with that whisper telling you, whatever the advice is, when you take and you pay attention to it, the more often you're listening to it, the louder that whisper becomes, and the more frequent it will be noticeable, especially if you're taking aligned action. If you keep listening to it and you don't do anything, it may not, talk as often as it could. So I always kind of like to use the analogy is that, God can't steer a parked car. A lot of times people will says, well, God will guide me. And that says, well, that's great. It's it's kind of like a GPS in your car. You sitting in your driveway, you program your GPS on which route you want to take. Okay, that might be the inner compass or in God giving you directions. But if you never leave the driveway, you're never going to get to your destination. So you need to not only listen to the inner compass, you also need to take aligned action. And as you start down that road towards the ultimate goal, you will get those updates and like, okay, turn here, turn here. It's like recalculating. So there's so many different analogies because it's like if you're going to go somewhere at night and it's quite a distance away, well, at night you got your headlights that shine out like whatever 20, 30 feet out in front of your car. Gee, I can't see my final destination. I'm just not going to go. Well, if you start driving, it illuminates the route in front of you as you travel. That's the same way with paying attention to your inner compass. You're going to get further instructions along the way, but you have to take aligned action. And all the stories that will be shared in the Inner Compass podcast are, further evidence of that situation where they got the initial nudge, they took action and took more action, and they had, ended up with a life that they never would have had before. And that's just by paying attention to their inner compass. And some of them, one story coming up that is powerful. It's like if hadn't listened to her inner compass, she wouldn't be alive today. So there's all kinds of different stories on how the inner compass has helped. So I want to invite you to come back frequently and watch the different episodes and share them with others, and welcome you to the Inner Compass podcast. And I hope to have a variety of stories that you find interesting and are able to share. So like and subscribe and take care. And we'll see you in the next episode where I'm going to share a little bit more about my personal stories around the inner compass. So until then, take care. Bye.
Trust